One, two, three. All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 13th, 2023 meeting of the Human Services Committee, Manhattan CB11s. My name is Isaac Scott, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 6:07 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by Marlene Pierre, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe some ground rules. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. Second, CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise hand function there. If you have technical difficulty, click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record when recognized. Please remember your questions and comments, Please keep your questions and comments brief and succinct and on topic, please, everyone. Members of the public, if you have a question or a comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Now we will take attendance by roll call. Committee members, please answer present when your name is called.
April Autry. Present. Mark Bukowski.
Present.
Suhab Chowdhury.
Present.
Kareem Kauser.
Present.
Brandon Gillespie.
Present.
Jennifer Meyer.
Present.
Isaac Scott.
Present.
And Robin Stracer.
Present.
Is anybody here? We have a forum, Isaac.
Thank you. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there's no objections, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand to be recognized. Okay, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. A template of the minutes from October's meeting was made available to the public on the CB11 website. If there are no objections, we will adopt those minutes from that meeting. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the last meeting are adopted. Okay, we can segue right into our first set of announcements. I wanted to, the one that's on the agenda that you have before you, I'm gonna push that back to the new business portion of the meeting because it falls in line with something I wanted to speak to you all about regarding community initiatives. The first announcement I would like to make is a continuation of the first one we made last month and just continuing to, take a moment before giving the scope of the Human Services Committee. I think it's only right to just take a moment of silence with respects to, the war that's still taking place. Thousands of lives have been lost since we have last met. Not bringing any politics, any positions into the space, but want to honor those who, who have lost their lives and those who have lost loved ones and those who are directly connected to these tragedies. Thank you. So with that being said, we will just take a 30-second moment of silence and then proceed. Thank you very much, everyone. With that, are there any announcements from any committee members? Are there any special announcements anyone would like to make? Let us know about any events or community initiatives or things we should know about. or that the community should know about that's happening? Announcements. Okay, seeing no announcements from any committee members, I will take a look at our virtual space. Are there any announcements for the community at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to transition us right into our first set of informational updates. Do we have someone online from, yes, I see Pauline is here today. How you doing, Pauline?
Hello, I am back from family leave. So I am excited to get back acclimated into work. So I don't have any major updates for tonight, but I am very happy to take any questions or any outstanding concerns that the community board has during the time I was out. So I open up to any questions. Thank you so much.
Pauline, would you mind just introducing yourself briefly so folks know who you are and where you work at?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry about that. So Pauline Ferranti, I am the Manhattan liaison for the Office of External Affairs at the Department of Health. And I was away for a couple of months on family leave, and I am happy to be back. If you do have my old work cell number, please get rid of that because while I was away, they canceled that line. And I am waiting for a new work phone. So once I get that, I will let everyone know. But the best way to get in contact with me is via email, and I can put that information in the chat if appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Are there any questions from any committee members? Any questions from anyone in the virtual space? Seeing no hands raised, I'm going to segue us up to our next set of informational updates. Thank you very much, Pauline. It's great to have you back. We're looking forward to continuing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next set of updates are from our East Harlem Emergency Management Agency, East Harlem Co-Ed. Sister Johnson, are you giving updates today?
Hi, good afternoon. It's Selena Hernandez today. Even though I see Carol's in the house.
Yes. Hey, Selena, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Hello, everybody. I'm with the East Harlem Community Organizations Active in Disasters, East Harlem Co-Ed, and I just have a few updates, actually. We have a session. We've expanded our idea of preparedness because we realize that there's all level of emergencies. And with that said, we're going to be having a will workshop so people in the community can take part for free in how to make your own will in New York City this Thursday. It's going to be at 2050 2nd Avenue, which is the East Harlem Tutorial Program. They've opened their doors to us so that we can host this session. It's at 4 p.m. We will have a notary on site so that if you complete your will on site, it will be notarized by 2 witnesses and it will be official. You do not have to have a number of assets to have a will. It could be as simple as wanting people to know what plans you want to have after you've passed on. If you have dependents, a pet, it's a good idea to have a will. If there's things that you want to leave to people, things you don't want to leave to people, these are all things that you can put in a will. So we invite you this Thursday. Again, it's free, 4 o'clock, East Harlem Tutorial Program, 2050 2nd Avenue. That's this Thursday. Secondly, our next meeting is going to be December 14th. It's usually the 3rd Thursday, but just sort of an acknowledgement of all the holidays and the hustle and bustle, we've moved it to December 14th. It will be virtual. We welcome everyone to join if interested, and that's at 4 p.m. And lastly is that the East Harlem Co-Ed, along with Little Sisters of Assumption, will be taking part in a hat and glove drive. So where we are going to be distributing it will be announced in December, but we will be collecting things. Last year, we realized that there were a lot of people, not only in need, but with a lot of asylum seekers, there were a lot of things that were needed. And that was one of the major asks of us. So that's another thing we're going to be doing. If you have any questions or want to confirm for any of our events or inquiries, it's eastharlemcoed@gmail.com. and I can put that in the chat as well if I'm allowed to. I can't remember. Again, eastharlemcoed@gmail.com. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Yes, please, leave your email in the chat for us. Are there any questions for, East Harlem Co-ed? Questions for committee members? Any questions from anyone in our virtual space? Okay, I see one hand is up. Trevor Alexander, can you unmute yourself?
You can speak as much as.
Yes, Trevor Alexander? Okay. I will, okay. We'll, come back to you, I guess. Marlon, would you mind making me the call? All right, with that, we will transition. Thank you very much, Selena. Appreciate you very much for delivering those updates. And thank you for leaving your email in the chat for any questions. I wonder, I'm gonna be in DC on Thursday, but I was wondering, are you guys gonna do that will workshop again? Yeah.
It depends on the response, honestly, because if we get a good response, then we can have it again in the new year because we recognize the importance of it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm gonna keep asking about that too. Okay, I see, Trevor Alexander, your hand popped back up again. Are you able to speak? We can keep it going. So, thank you. Our next set of, updates will be from Borinquen Neighborhood Health Center. Do we have Dr. Aponte on with us today? It's not, okay.
Are you guys warm? I'm just asking.
Yes. Okay, so I don't see anyone on, from Borinquen, so we'll keep our meeting going forward. I also do not see the person who generally gives our cannabis update. So with that, that will conclude our informational updates for this evening. We can transition right into our presentations. Oh, excuse me. Yes, we can segue right into our presentations and discussions. Our first presentation will be from Dr. John Liang. It will be an informational presentation regarding a new emergency stroke trial through Mount Sinai's health system called FASTES. If I'm saying that correct, Dr. Liang, are you on?
Hello, hi. I'm actually Dr. Stephen Shapiro. I'm covering for Dr. Liang. I'm one of the people on the study, and he's unavailable right now, so he asked me to step in. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Dr. Shapiro. Please, are you able to share your screen? Do you need to share your screen?
I can share the screen. I just wanted to, let me just make sure. Second. All right. And sorry, I'm actually also on call for stroke call. So if for any moment I need to sign off, I'll let you guys know, but it shouldn't be a problem. I have someone covering me, but just in case. Okay, share screen. All right.
So just as a reminder, Dr. Shapiro, presentations are 10 minutes, and we ask that you leave, make your presentation maybe like 7 minutes and leave the last few minutes for Q&A, if that's cool.
Yeah, totally fine. I'll be brief. I mean, the basic, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present our trial. This is a trial about basically for acute bleeds in the brain. We're investigating whether this drug can help save lives, essentially. So just wanted, and we're trying to because it's a time-sensitive study, want to get people in the community aware of that we're doing this study. And I'll kind of go over a little bit of the parameters, again, just for community information, as well as take any questions you folks might have about the study, but more importantly about stroke care or anything like that. So, we're going to talk about what a brain bleed is, or an intracerebral hemorrhage. We're going to talk about what factor 7A is and explain what the trial is and what we're trying to accomplish, as well as discuss emergency research and consent. And this is kind of the goal of community outreach, to make sure you guys are aware that it's essentially a study that it's an emergency consent. So educating the community around Mount Sinai and Mount Sinai West is very important to us. So what is a brain hemorrhage? You can see here that this is a CAT scan, and there's this bright stuff in the middle that's actually blood. So basically, you can think of it as kind of like a pipe. Whenever a pipe bursts, you can think of this as a vessel. Whenever a vessel bursts, it's full of pressure, like your blood pressure. And whenever there's, a burst of blood, it can start to cause bleeding. And in the skull, because the brain is stuck inside the skull, there's no place for the blood to go. So it causes injury, but also as the blood expands further and further, there's more and more injury to it, because again, it's an enclosed space. So brain hemorrhage, or ICH, intracerebral hemorrhage, is a type of stroke that accounts for about 10% of the 17 million strokes per year. It's a very, strokes are very common. It's one of the leading causes of morbidity and mortality in the world, and particularly, with an aging community, it's going to actually pick up as well. With a brain bleed, 40% of patients die, and only 20% of survivors are functionally independent. Again, the most important part is the size of because again, the skull is a compressed space, that the more bleeding you have, the more pressure that's built in the brain. And so one of the things that we're investigating, because there's actually no proven treatment for the treatment of bleeds, essentially you're hoping that the bleeding stops and that there is no more bleeding. But there is no proven treatment for stopping bleeding as of right yet. It's essentially, it's time, and if there's a significant amount of pressure in the brain, we take off the skull to relieve the pressure, but there's no medication that can stop a bleed in its tracks. So as you can see here, here's a time sequence of bleeds over time, and it basically over time in the first 2 hours, or basically in the first hour to 2 hours, is when we think bleeds expand, because again, you have a leaky vessel and it's squirting out a little bit of blood, and unless the clotting factors in your bloodstream are able to act right away, it's going to get worse and worse, and unfortunately cause pretty serious unfortunate complications. I guess the question in the slide is, does anyone here know of anyone that's had a stroke or a brain bleed? I imagine some people have, maybe by show of hands. Anyone knows anyone? Okay. Yeah, it's unfortunately very common. In my line of work, it keeps us in business, but unfortunately, it's very common and devastating, and that's what we're trying to do at Sinai, is try to figure out ways to treat it. So again, this is just an overview of the treatment, but it's kind of maybe more granular. The point is, right now, without any proven treatment, our main goal is to try to lower the blood pressure, try to relieve pressure in the brain, and sometimes we need surgery to remove the blood. So what is factor 7A? So this is basically a recombinant factor, which essentially means it's a created compound. So we actually have clotting factors in our bloodstream that help plug up bleeds. There's lots of different factors. Factor 7A is one of the stuff that stimulates blood clots, and it's recombinant, means that it's essentially factory made. It's not the one that is in our own bloodstream, but it activates. It's meant to activate the blood clotting factors. It's usually used in bleeding disorders such as hemophilia. Some patients, if they have hemophilia, that means they don't have some clotting factors and they bleed very easily. And so one of the uses of factor 7A is to give patients that don't have blood clotting factors. But it's not been studied for brain hemorrhage. In the past, it hasn't been used for brain hemorrhage. In the past, it was studied about 10 or 15 years ago, and it didn't show any promise, but we think it's because it was given too late. It was done within, I believe 12 hours after onset, but most of the most of the bleeding or the expansion occurs in the first 2 hours. So that's likely the time to give this pro-clotting factor, or this essentially this clotting factor, to try to clog up to clot the hole in the vessel. So what we're trying to do is to randomize patients to either placebo, which means essentially like saline or nothing, versus factor 7A. And the goal is to get to these patients as soon as possible, as soon as they have any bleed or anything like that, to give this medication as soon as they get to the hospital. Essentially, we're developing systems of care that as soon as the patient hits the ED and we identify that it's a bleed, that we'd be able to give them this clotting factor to help clot up the blood vessels. But again, this is a study, so we have to randomize patients, unfortunately, to prove its benefit. We think it's beneficial, but that's the whole point of the study. And right now, there is no treatment. So the placebo arm is essentially standard of care versus the treatment arm, which is standard of care plus this clotting factor given within the first 2 hours. So again, the goal of the study is to determine if a medicine used, this factor 7A, can improve outcomes after a brain bleed. The goal, it's not only done at Sinai. Sinai is one of the sites, but we're doing it all over. It's a multi-center international trial being done at many different sites, because this is one of the a large kind of medical study. And basically any person that's between the ages of 18 and 80 with bleeding in their brain, and that we try to give them the medication as soon as possible. And the goal is within 2 hours of onset, because that's when most of the expansion occurs. Who would not qualify, there's certain reasons not to qualify. I think maybe this is a little bit too granular, but essentially if there's a reason to be on a blood thinner, or if the bleed is very large, or if the patient's at imminent, if there's a concern that the patient might have imminent demise just because of the size of the blood. Sometimes, unfortunately, patients that have very large bleeds are likely going to pass away just from the bleed, and unfortunately, there's nothing to be done in those situations. So there's some reasons not to qualify, but we try to, again, there's certain parameters to qualify. So again, we minimize time to treatment. We have protocols, including mobile stroke units that are run actually by New York Presbyterian. And again, we've developed systems of care at Mount Sinai West and Mount Sinai Hospital to try to treat patients that come with bleeds as soon as possible, because time is brain, and we try to fix the brain as best we can. So again, the study is we get the patients as soon as we can, we identify a bleed, and then patients will be essentially either randomized to standard of care with a placebo or standard of care with factor 7A. And the reason it's called fastest is because the other group, the old study, was called FAST. It was factor 7A something study, but fastest. And again, the two arms, and again, it's randomized by chance, and everyone will get standard of care, but we're going to see if this medication given to people helps stop expansion of bleeding. It also doesn't cause more blood clots, because obviously we're giving something that's a procoagulant, so there's always a concern it can cause clots as well. And again, we'll closely monitor these patients. They will be in the ICU, get the standard of care. I'm sorry, there's an echo going on.
Dr. Shapiro.
Hello? Okay. So let's see. So the benefits, again, the benefit is to show benefit to the world and the community, to see if there's any kind of, it slows bleeding. The risks, again, this is a study and it can cause clots to occur. But again, the placebo, we're randomizing it to placebo. So has anyone been involved in a research study? By show of hands, anyone?
Thank you very much.
No. Okay. Let's see. So we're using a emergency exception for informed consent. That's why we're here today, just to let the community know that essentially, because time is so critical and we're trying to get people enrolled as fast as possible, we're essentially using an exception to informed consent. This is from the IRB as well. We have lots of kind of ethical standards to meet. And so we essentially enroll patients in just because of the time sensitive and emergent situation of this. Oh, sorry, someone has a question in the community board? No? Maybe? No? Okay. I'll go on. So more, I know we're running short on time. So how do we, hello?
How you doing, good sir? Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry, we've been like, I'm sorry. Um, can we transition into questions, please?
Sure, let's just go straight to questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Are there any questions based on what we did here?
Yeah, I have a question. Who's sponsoring the study? Is it the hospital? Is it the drug company that makes the medicine? Who's actually funding this study?
It's NIH, I believe. Cynthia can also go into this, but I believe it's a multi-center. It's not Cynthia, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here. The study is funded by the NIH. It's part of the NIH's group of stroke studies called StrokeNet.
So the government effectively. So it's not, there's no kind of skin in the game by the drug companies or anything like that. It's by the government, National Institute of Health.
Okay, and is this the way that you inform the community? There are other ways that you inform the community of the fact that there's this EFIC and potential implementation?
So we've been doing community events for the past year, including, presentations at senior centers around Mount Sinai West and Mount Sinai Hospital, as those are the two sites we're conducting the study at, as well as showing up to community fairs or street markets, stuff like that, handing out flyers around the hospital. Those are kind of some of the community engagement events that we've been doing.
Are there any other questions? Yes, please, Robin.
Thank you. Can you please correct me? Did I read that this is only being given to people who give consent? Whether it's them or their family members, or are you including people who you're not able to get consent from?
So at this time, we're currently only including people who can sign consent for themselves or have a legally authorized representative who can sign consent. We're doing this EFIC plan, the EFIC community consultation, in order to, as part of FDA guidelines, to be able to consent or enroll patients without consent and then get it prospectively after they regain capacity, or if we can contact an LAR. Just because of the emergent trial, like the 2-hour window, EFIC exists for this study, and it's been FDA approved, and of course ran through our own local and central regulatory committees as well.
Thank you.
I'll also drop a link in the chat with more information about the trial on the national website page, as well as there's a survey on the website in English and Spanish that you can fill out regarding your feelings about the trial that we'll definitely review.
Are there any other questions from any committee members in the room? Any questions from anybody in the virtual space?
Any stroke questions in general?
Oh,
I
I have a
yes.
question. I have a question.
1 second. We have another question in the room, please, Mr. Councilor.
Yes, I'm just curious about the results from the first study, the FAST study.
Sure, I can pull it up right now. It was a negative study because it didn't derive benefit. But unfortunately, let me pull it up. Fast trial engine. It was in the New England Journal, which is like the biggest.
Hey, Steve. Hey, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Dr. Liang, one of the other stroke doctors that's running the trial. Maybe I can, in the interest of time, I can just chime in on the last trial. So the last trial, the FAST trial, that involved about 800 patients, and they were kind of randomized to exactly what we're doing, the active medication versus saline. And overall, what they show was that the people who got this medication, the blood did not expand on the next CAT scan. So that was a positive in that sense. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at people 60 days, 90 days, that did not improve their function. However, when they look at the people who got the medication, the people who got it within 2 hours started to show on data analysis that they were actually doing better 60 days, 90 days down the road. So that's why the feeling was that even the first trial, we just did not get the medication fast enough. So that's why they wanted to redo the trial and give it earlier. But the important thing was from that trial, when they compared this medication to just saline, it was safe. There was no statistically significant downside or danger to the participants.
Thank you, Dr. Liang.
Yep.
I will transition into Jennifer Cusera. Did I say that right?
No, but that's okay.
How do you say it?
Kuchera.
Cusera. Please ask your question.
I just wanted to ask the team, if somebody didn't want to participate, they know they don't want to participate in this study. How would they, can you explain the process for opting out of participation?
Yes, we have opt-out cards. Our contact information will be shared with the community board, and I can also drop it in the chat, where you can email either Dr. Liang or myself or Dr. Shapiro, and request an opt-out card to keep in your wallet. All of our doctors are trained to look out for this opt-out card. So if you are not interested in participating in the trial, we'll look out for this card if you come into the ED at any point, so as not to enroll you in the trial automatically, as well as if you're a patient at Mount Sinai, we can also note it in your chart that you're not interested in participating in the trial.
Thank you very much. I'm going to, I see Selena's hand is up.
Hi, thank you. I was just wondering, 2 hours is not a lot of time. I was wondering what the hospitals were doing to streamline the process once a patient is from ER or from the ambulance to the hospital to make sure that you're able to even get to them in 2 hours.
So you're actually absolutely right. It's very difficult, and most patients unfortunately don't get there in time. Usually when we screen at, we hear wind of a candidate or a patient that has a bleed within the hours, we kind of mobilize. We have the fortune of being an academic medical center at Sinai and Sinai West. And so we try to mobilize all the residents, the fellows, all kind of the whole, apparatus that we have as a community, as an academic center, to try to get everything, multiple people are doing multiple things at the same time. But you're right, it is very difficult. And that's why, we're trying to streamline the process.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to transition us from here so we can keep the meeting going. But thank you very much, Dr. Shapiro, Dr. Liang, and Cynthia for being present. And thank you for leaving information in the chat. They left the contact information in the chat if you have more questions about the study. There's also a website here that has community resources. So I'll make sure that I do share that also inside of the minutes for this meeting, but you are free to go in the chat now and just copy that out. With that, thank you very much. I appreciate you for coming and presenting to us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we are going to transition into our second information and presentation. Do we have Lauren Velez on from the Corporation of Supportive Housing?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, please, you have 10 minutes.
All right, thank you so much. Am I able to share my screen, Isaac?
Yes, I believe you are.
All right, and I am gonna time myself for 10 minutes because sometimes I get chatty.
I appreciate diligence.
No problem. All right, give me one moment here.
Now, does the clock start from when I
know it's starting now. No, I will spare you my
I'm teasing.
challenges. They'll go into. All right, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, but it's not like in presentation mode, or it isn't.
There we go, right? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I am Lauren Velez, and I'm the Associate Director for New York at CSH, which is the Corporation for Supportive Housing. So as you may have guessed, I'm here to chat with you a little bit about supportive housing today. I know that there have been some recent supportive housing developments in the area, and some proposed ones are on the horizon as well. So just wanted to take some time to chat through supportive housing. So there we go. A little bit about CSH. We refer to ourselves as an intermediary for supportive housing, meaning that CSH itself does not own or operate any supportive housing, but we are a national organization that works through 4 different kind of main lines to support the implementation of supportive housing as a response to homelessness in different communities. So we do that through lending. We're a CDFI, and we have loan products to help jumpstart the development of supportive housing projects. We offer training and education. We have a pretty robust training center that has information on things all the way from kind of conceiving of a supportive housing project all the way through looking at the different populations you could serve and some of the different challenges or things that might come up with those populations. We do policy reform, consulting, and assistance. So we provide individualized technical assistance to service agencies, as well as localities, continuums of care, states. And through all of those kind of different legs of our stool here, we work to just advance supportive housing in different communities, and quality supportive housing at that. So wanted to give a snapshot here of the housing continuum of New York City in case folks aren't familiar. So we go kind of from emergency shelter and safe havens, which is probably the most precariously housed population that we could see. From that, we have transitional programs, which are meant to get folks back on their feet, but not necessarily meant to be their permanent housing, solution or their permanent home. Then we have affordable housing, which is exactly as it sounds. It's housing that's either made affordable because the price is right and you can afford it, or it's made affordable through subsidies that pay a portion of the rent so that the tenant's portion does not exceed 30% of their income, which is what's generally considered to be affordable housing. And supportive housing can't happen without affordable housing. So it's essentially affordable housing, usually through subsidy sources, that is paired with supportive services that are individualized to that tenant and their needs and goals to help them achieve and maintain stability. It is housing that's designed to be permanent, so people can stay in supportive housing as long as they need to. Some folks stay, until they transition, and either to a higher level of care or if they pass away. And other folks are in supportive housing for, a number of years or whatever until they get themselves kind of back on their feet and then want to move on. And then we have market rate housing, which is kind of, housing that may or may not be affordable, but is accessed by folks that can, make those payments. So as I mentioned before, supportive housing really just combines affordable housing with individualized services that are really targeted to help folks achieve stability and increase their autonomy and help them live with dignity. I think a lot of people have ideas or conceptions of who they think lives in supportive housing, but there are a lot of populations that are served effectively by supportive housing. So we have chronically homeless individuals, we have older adults, families, justice impacted individuals, adults with behavioral health needs, and then youth and young adults that are aging out of foster care are all populations that we frequently see in supportive housing. And why does it work? It's an evidence-based practice that has been kind of tried and tested all throughout the country and across the globe, actually. But the reason that it works is because it is really, really, truly person-centered. And we utilize evidence-based practices that have, a foundational base of evidence that show that they are impactful and do make a difference. Some of those I'll talk about in a minute, but worth calling out: housing first. So not housing as a reward for clinical success, but really operating on the belief that because you're a living, breathing human, that you deserve a safe and stable place to rest your head at night. Harm reduction, so working with folks to really reduce harm in a multitude of different ways. A lot of times we think of substance use, but that could be with regard to medication management or parenting. There's a number of different ways we could think about harm reduction. And then coming at this with a trauma-informed care lens, which is essentially understanding that the target demographic for supportive housing has likely been through a lot of trauma. And we have to understand that, that impacts the way they move through the world, just as whatever we experience impacts how we move through the world, right? So bringing a trauma-informed care lens essentially means that we're looking at the whole person, looking at their past experiences, what they're bringing to the table, and really meeting them where they're at. And providing consistent supportive services to help build trusting relationships. The support really is designed to be very individualized. It's not like a one-size-fits-all model, but really working with tenants to see what they want to work on and what goals they want to meet and how we can help connect them to resources to help them get there. It relies on a lot of different resource connections and partnerships. Nobody can really do it alone. I think another misconception about supportive housing can be that like everything is in-house and done by supportive housing providers and staff, but actually it really takes a network of partners and stakeholders coming together to be experts in their own areas and in their own lanes to provide the best care for folks and really establish like a safety net of folks in the community so that they're not just becoming, tenants aren't just becoming reliant on their supportive housing case manager to get all their needs met. And then we have quality standards, which need to be in place in order for supportive housing to be effective and a real advantage for the staff, for the tenants, and for the community at large. These are a few more components of quality supportive housing. Again, noting that it's affordable, permanent. It does target folks that have multiple barriers typically. Tenants do have a lease. That's another thing that folks don't necessarily understand. Supportive housing is not an institution. It is not like a medical setting or a psychiatric setting. People have a lease, so they have the same obligations and rights as any other tenant would. The services are voluntary, so they're not, the housing is not contingent on services. People do have the right to opt out of services, but the vast majority of folks are participating in services in some way, shape, or form. Common myths and misconceptions. This is kind of like the meat of what I wanted to get at, so hopefully my timer won't ding while we're on this slide, but one common myth that we see a lot is that supportive housing is basically the same as an institution or a psychiatric or clinical setting, like I said a moment ago. And it's not. Folks are able to come and go as they please. They are not, tied to their unit. They can leave supportive housing if they want to. And their individualized services should really be based on their unique needs. Another concern that comes up is that the presence of supportive housing decreases property values. And there is no evidence that supports this. In fact, there's actually evidence that shows that property values have increased once supportive housing developments have come to different neighborhoods and localities. Another misconception is that supportive housing residents, by and large, are dangerous and make neighborhoods less safe. And there's also no evidence that supports this. Supportive housing tenants have more supports and options and things in place than any other tenant in that area. And they may be coming from really tough backgrounds and have experienced a lot of trauma, but there's no evidence that has ever indicated that supportive housing residents are dangerous or that they make neighborhoods less safe. Oftentimes as well, when these buildings are being constructed, if there is security on premises and things like that, that's something that the community can benefit from overall as a safety measure. And lastly, that supportive housing equals drugs and drug use in my community. It is true that we may see folks in supportive housing that have, high rates of behavioral health conditions, of substance use disorders, and comorbid or trimorbid conditions, meaning they're struggling with multiple things at the same time. But the reality is that the drugs are likely already present in the community. And while supportive housing tenants are maybe more prone to being preyed upon, the goal is really to increase safety and support for these residents and to offer, a safe haven if they're struggling with behavioral health challenges and getting them connected to the resources that will help them, maintain and achieve and maintain the stability that we all want in our homes. And my timer did go off, so I'll stop here.
Thank you, Lauren, but I just want to say, well, I had a question. Did you do this presentation before the land use committee?
No, I have not.
Man, they would have appreciated this, especially those points that speak specifically to these myths. Those two, one, the presence of supportive housing decreases property values, as well as supportive housing residents are dangerous to the community. I think those 2 points are huge myths that people carry and use and wield a lot, you know, in this community. So thank you for highlighting that. I don't have any, that was the only question I had. Does any, yes, we have a question in the room.
Yeah. You said, thank you for the presentation. You said that the vast majority of the supportive housing residents take advantage of the services. Can you be more specific when you say vast majority? And what does that continuation of care look like?
Yeah.
They come once, they come every month, they come, I mean.
Yeah, so typically the frequency of the visits and the interactions with services teams and case managers is going to depend and vary tenant to tenant, depending on their own kind of unique needs. It would usually go to follow that, you know, when folks are first moving in, it is quite a transition getting into housing. As a supportive housing, I forgot to mention at the top of the call, I worked for CSH, but I spent over a decade overseeing, you know, as a clinical director with overseeing supportive housing programmings and supportive housing development. And, you know, as a case manager, I remember being really surprised at the amount of support that folks needed when they moved into housing, because I kind of thought like, oh, this was the goal. This is what you've been working on. Like, we're here. This is great. But the truth is that a lot of them have needs that have been unmet or put off for a really long time. So the intensity of services, you know, can tend to be a bit more upfront. And then typically there can be like a lull, you know, as people are kind of settling into their services, really kind of testing out whether or not they can like trust the folks that they're working with, right? It takes a minute to feel comfortable enough to divulge some of our deepest, darkest moments in life and things that we might need the most help with. And then there's typically, once that rapport is built, there's an uptick. Most supportive housing clients are seen at least once a month, but really best practice would indicate that they're, you know, sometimes if folks are experiencing a increase in their acuity and or the intensity of their, you know, need for services and supports as often as they need to. So that could be, you know, 3 times a week. And really it should ebb and flow as their needs kind of come and go. So it's not like you get this number of visits in the first few months, this number in the next set of months or anything like that.
Well, I assume it's best practice to keep some kind of log and statistics on usage of the services. So just here, in the course of a year, what percentage of the supportive housing residents are most likely, given your data, to actually utilize the services available to them?
Yeah, so I can tell you from, this is just a small snapshot in programs that I oversaw, it was about 97%.
That's high.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions in the room? Great question for you.
Mhm.
Any other questions in the room? Okay, I will take a look at the virtual space. Do we have any questions from anybody in the virtual space? I see Tamika Mapp's hand went up. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. How you doing?
Hey, thank you so much, Chair. My question is, do y'all do some type of research on, I'm sorry if it's been asked already, about the needs of the community that you're wanting to service? Or do you just do like, okay, this is 97% of New York City that kind of like need this? And do you do recommendation of the gap of services that's not in that community?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so when we work with folks that are developing supportive housing in different communities, really encourage them to look at what the need in those communities is. That's a great way to get buy-in from the community, is to go to the community directly and learn more about what the needs are as the community sees them. There are different populations that awards are essentially given out to for supportive housing funding. Yeah, so for supportive housing funding awards, sorry. So they can, you know, the populations can be focused on youth, you know, aging out of foster care, or runaway homeless youth, or people that are reentering the community, or older adults. So typically, you know, the agencies, when they're going for these awards, they'll have to focus on one population. and if that population is not, you know, one that is in need in the community, it's a lot harder to get buy-in. And really, it's like it's almost wasting a resource in an area that, you know, needs something else. So, in our along with the lending and loan products that we have, we do technical assistance for folks that are interested in developing supportive housing as well, to look at what the needs are in the community and really see how they can develop the most impactful project that will have the, you know, greatest likelihood of passing and getting through community boards.
Thank you.
Thank you, answering that question. I'm going to, say thank you very, very much for your presentation. I imagine you've already shared the slides with us, but if you haven't, can you please send them so we could, definitely share them. We'll put them up on the, next to the minutes so folks can, look at the information that you presented. I imagine it's going to be very helpful to, you know, resolutions and a lot of other advocacy, you know, based towards supportive housing for a lot of different demographics. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Have a good night. Okay, so I'm gonna, before we go to our next presentation, I'm going to allow Dr. Ponte to from Burlington Neighborhood Health. How you doing, sir? If you can hear me and you can unmute yourself, if you have any updates, then you please, here's an opportunity for you to give them.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for my tardiness, but I was actually down in Puerto Rico at Somos conference. So just got back in literally a few minutes ago. And so I want to join at least just to hear what's going on. No major update for us. I think the biggest focus right now at Borinquen is I guess a couple of things. So first of all, we're working with DRI. I guess you guys all know about the DRI Downtown Revitalization Initiative. We submitted a proposal to them to do some work in our building to expand some services. We've been looking at some services and some service needs for the community. And in particular, there's a couple of areas that we're trying to sort of hone in on. One of those, expansion of dental. I'm not sure that folks know this, but we have a pretty large dental department with 10 operatories. And we are busy 6 days a week, and there is still more need for dental services in East Harlem, particularly for pediatric dental services and orthodontia, that's braces for children. Parents really have to travel very far to have these braces applied, and there are very few providers in East Harlem that provide that service. So we think that's really critically important for us to try to get that service in-house. We're going to try to do that with or without the DRI funding.
It's not us. It's not us. Dr. Ponte? All right, so in the interest of time, I am going to reluctantly move us forward because we should, but well, it's fine. When he joins, he can give the rest of that update afterwards. Let's transition to our next informational presentation, which is the last one for this evening from Mr. Terry.
I'm so sorry about that, guys. I lost power to my computer. I'm not sure where I left off, but do I still have time, Mr. Chair, or do you want me to suspend my comments?
Yes, you still have time. Please finish your.
Oh, I do apologize.
You were right after. You were right after. Yes, you were right after where you spoke about the need for dental services for children in East Harlem, and there being a lot of huge need and not many providers. So we wanted to prioritize that clinic.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So orthodontia in particular, and that's again applying braces for children. That is definitely something that many in East Harlem don't have access to, or if they do, they have to travel pretty far. And so we think that's a really important service. And then the other service that we're particularly looking at is our physical therapy, occupational therapy. Again, those are services that are not rendered in this community readily. And so that's really important that we sort of focus in on trying to get those services in line for us. Other than that, I think that the other thing that we're, sort of lending our voice to is sort of what's happening in the community around some of the things that you heard about, supportive housing, how we can partner with supportive housing to provide medical services within those supportive housing environments. So we're really interested to talk to different partners. And then the last thing I'll mention is that one of the things that we're trying to do at Borinquen is to work with our sister FQAC. So there's two other FQACs in East Harlem, Settlement Health and Institute for Family Health. And typically FQACs operate in a silo, but my philosophy is that we should really be partnering to the best degree possible, so that we can collectively focus on what's called population health, not just the individual, but the population of East Harlem. So I have a series of meetings set up with leadership at both those institutions to talk about how we'll sort of collaborate and try to, patients are very fluid. They may go to settlement for certain things and Borinquen for other things. And we want to try to see how we can work together to make sure that wherever door they come into, there's no wrong door for them in terms of accessing healthcare services. So as that becomes more sort of, gets more meat on that bone, if you will, we'll certainly bring that more forward to this board to inform you about this, what we're aiming to do regarding that. But to me, that's really, really important. And we have to stop operating these silos that we have traditionally done and really collaborate much more intensely and deliberately and intentionally around how we take care of patients no matter where they go. So those are my major updates for today, but happy to take any questions or comments regarding Borinquen and what we're doing. By the way, we have bivalent COVID vaccine, not bivalent, the new COVID vaccine booster available for uninsured patients. So anyone who's uninsured can come to our health center and receive that vaccination. Obviously, our insured patients can also come and get that vaccination, but we want to make sure that the uninsured patients are aware of that. We also will be receiving the flu vaccine for uninsured patients, as well as the new RSV vaccine. That's the respiratory syncytial virus vaccine for folks 16 and older. That one is on the way to the health center, again, for uninsured patients. We do have that supply in-house for our insured patients as well, but we're going to be one of the city sites for uninsured individuals for those 3 vaccines. So I think that's an important update for this committee as well. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Alfonso. Are there any questions regarding this update from Borinquen Neighborhood Health? I did not see any. No questions in the room, no questions online. Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate you very much. Yes, there's no questions, Dr. Alfonso. Thank you very much for your presentation, sir.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Terrence Judd, thank you very much for your patience. Thank you. I wanted to, I'll just introduce the discussion, but I also wanted to preface it with a little bit of process so that you sort of, we're all on the same page with respects to timeline and expectations with regards to letters for support. So this is a discussion regarding a request for a letter of support for Your Needs First Inc. and its employment transitional housing program. So traditionally, well, let me not say it that way. What we have been, I want to say it started earlier this year, in order to give committee members as well, I'm a committee member, so myself and the rest of the committee enough time to review and ask questions and do our homework about your work. We generally take, so this month you would do a presentation. We do have your organizational assessment form that you did fill out. I'm correct, Marlon, you don't have that, okay. So in the meantime,
I will get it to you though.
So you give your presentation today. You'll fill out that form. Once you do, it's a Google form now. It's no longer a paper form. So once you fill that out, we'll share those results with the rest of the committee so that if they have any questions, they can ask you directly or indirectly through me or Marlene. But the next between now and December will be our opportunity to really like comb through everything that you're presenting to us. And then in December, we will have you back and then we can make a decision or a vote on whether to or not to provide the letter of support. And that is the process that we have been implementing. So I don't want you to think that that's unique to you. The only exception, yes, and the only exceptions to that, and you should express this to us, is if it is a time-sensitive request. So sometimes folks are coming before us and they are requesting a letter of support for a particular application or something that may have a deadline and they can't wait until the next month. If that is the case, we do ask that you provide proof, and then we will do our best to sort of expedite that. But, you know, it wouldn't be standard to do that on the floor right now and say, hey, yeah, I got, you know, that should be something you let us know in advance. But just wanted to outline the process for you and just on the record as well. So with that being said, good brother, please, we welcome you and we look forward to hearing about your project.
Okay, and I thank you, I appreciate it. I thank y'all for having me and taking the time to hear, you know, my side and the proposal that we're looking to present. Just a little back history. I've been in the social service field for over 23 years. And I started out doing outreach on the streets of Brooklyn, psychiatric social work, assistant program director, which all transpired in a 6-year time period. I started working with the Department of Homeless Services where I was doing regulatory compliance. I had 13 shelters. Some were actually city operated shelters. Some were private providers. I had to make sure they were in compliance, city, state, federal, and the fire department, which I cleaned up all violations. They gave me an opportunity to move over to the other side of DHS, where I was working with the chief of operations, and I end up managing. And my degree is not in finance, but in learning the ambiance of everything, I ended up managing the budget for the adult division of over $50 million. The budget had 32 object codes and 21 different programs, one of which was also the HOPE program. I ended up leaving there because they had this big wipeout of everybody who was in civil service. And I got caught up in that because my mother was in a coma for 6 months. And I end up having to, you know, trying to study and going to school and being a single parent and all of this, but I missed about 3 points. So they ended up laying me off. I went back in the field. I was actually going to go into media, and I miss helping people. So I went back into the field. I actually started helping another not-for-profit that I'll leave nameless. But at this point in time, something came up, and this building on 107. I used to live in Franklin Plaza on 106 and 3rd Avenue when I was going to Hunter College. So I'm familiar with the area. And the population that we're looking to serve is an employment shelter where it'll be single males, 70 to 75 individuals. We're doing a complete renovation of the building. On site, we'll have the clinical staff, we have operation maintenance, full kitchen staff teaching them, preparing 3 nutritious meals a day and teaching them how to cook, and security on site. Security will be doing perimeter walks, making sure that no clients are loitering around the facility or, you know, being intrusive in the area. We want to remain invisible. The workshops that we have and that we're going to be teaching them is independent living skills, finance, business management, job training, where we're doing mock interviews. We're going to be teaching them how to prepare and dress for success. As I mentioned, we're going to incorporate a culinary program to teach them how to be cooks if that's what their passion is. We're going to have computer labs to help them make sure that they're savvy and tech savvy as far as creating it, understanding their credit and the credit report, because most people, you know, single males, they don't have that opportunity. Most of them, they grew up in a single parent household, and nothing against the mother, but you know, when you're in a 2-parent household, some are nurturers and some are the enforcers. So they need that discipline, and they don't have that balance in life. That's why we'll be also doing mentorship, because the males still need to be taught how to be a gentleman and hold the door for ladies. When you go into a room in a house, you take off your hat. It's just Southern things that we feel are necessary for, men to be men in society. Parenting skills, if they have their kids, if they need to get, pay for child support, there's programs that will help them with that. Business development, if they have an entrepreneurial mindset, we'll help them, in preparation for that. And the mainstream of it is to get them back into permanent housing, because that's the whole premise of why we do it. The facility that I currently manage, we have one with 127, another building has 58. So we have a target of 63 clients that we have to place back into permanent housing. I'm happy to say that at the end of this month, we'll conclude the annual budget. And we've already placed 111 males back into the mainstream of society. And not one of them has returned to shelter, because we do aftercare. We make sure we treat them like adults and with respect. And everything is documented. We have systems in place, the staff, we cross-train. When we go in there, we don't, excuse me, we don't necessarily talk titles. Everybody know their responsibility. And in a cross-train methodology, you're able to make sure that if someone calls out, we don't miss a beat, because failure is not an option. We're always going to succeed. And this is why when we have the Callahan, which is when the Homeless Coalition and DHS come in and do an inspection, in all my years of in the field, we've gotten nothing less than perfect. On the state OTDA, in the last 4 years, we were able to obtain a perfect on the social services. On the operational, they picked little things here and there. Client left a shirt on the floor, window didn't have a screen, but it's okay, because they got to find something. Nobody's going to come into a business where they don't find anything, because then they're not doing their job. So being able to do a perfect on an OTDA at both sites, I think that that's something that we take real pride in doing. And this is the same thing that we're looking to do if granted the opportunity to work with y'all in a community board. We have CAD meetings that we invite you to. You can see that what I say is what I mean. And we invite the police, we invite the council, the District 8, who referred me to speak to y'all in reference to this opportunity. And this is why I'm humbly coming to y'all asking for the letter of support. I mean, anything there is that you need, y'all gonna have my contact information. I'm not gonna disappear, and the clients will not be intrusive. When I say security, do perimeter walks, I don't mean corner to corner. I mean around the block. If you see them, go check the subway. We make sure that we're not intrusive. And if a client is, because DHS will send clients there, then if they send someone like that, we'll request that they're transferred out of the vicinity, because we don't want to be traumatizing to anyone, and anything from our program. So I know we're cutting close on time. I hope I wasn't talking too fast. I'm just trying to, give y'all everything that I have that, like I said, I've been doing this for so many years. It's just systematic to me that it's a win-win. It's a win-win.
Thank you, Brother Drew. I wanted to first thank you. I had a few things come to mind. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask, just a standard question we probably generally ask, is regarding the other sites, and even this site, do you know how many, first, where referrals coming from when it gets for your, or like where do you get people from? Are they all being referred from HRA? And what's the process for referral with respects to are people from East Harlem, are single adult men who have gone into the shelter system from East Harlem able to access this site? So that's the area of that question. Sorry if it didn't come out clearly.
No, if I understand what you're saying, our clients that come to the program will be referred through the Department of Homeless Services. Anyone who needs to enter the shelter, they will have to go to 30th Street and 2nd Avenue. when they go there, they can say, hey, I resided in Harlem, and is there any way you have any shelters in that vicinity? And being that we're an employment shelter, it's not that many employment shelters in Manhattan, so they can make the request to come there. But people just won't be able to come to the door and we accept them in because DHS has that policy where they make the referrals. And the employment is employed or employable clients that will come to the facility.
And thank you for that. And the other thing I wanted to ask is, you mentioned the tour or visiting the space. Is that what I heard?
Well, when we have the CAD meeting, the community board would be allowed to come in and, you know, sit down and we'll tell you exactly what we're doing. If there's any issues with any of our clients in the vicinity, you can bring it to our attention, which you'll have our number. So during the process, if they're acting up, you can call the staff. We're there 24/7, and then they'll go out there and they'll address it. But when we have the CAB meeting, the people can come in. But DHS policy is that people can't come in and just roam the building because we have a confidentiality and a HIPAA law that we have to protect the client's secrecy to be in a shelter. And even if the police were to come and say, hey, I want to do a walkthrough, we couldn't. Even if we wanted them to, they would have to be in hot pursuit. If they're chasing someone and the client comes in the building and like 2 seconds later, the cops come in and say, hey, we were chasing this guy with a red shirt, we can escort them to that person. Other than that, they have to go and get a search warrant, and then they can come, and we're not going to sit down and not escort them to someone. They have a search warrant. They will arrest them, and we just have to do the reports and inform DHS of the policy and procedure.
Thank you for that. My other question was regarding public, like, is there somewhere we can like a link or a website somewhere we can read up more on this new site that's being built, developed, specifically where we can learn more about the employment services and the social services, or are you the only way we can find that out?
Until it's approved by DHS, I'm the only source of it at the moment. But like I said, I'll be more than happy to sit down and explain to you in detail to let you know. I want y'all to be comfortable with what's coming in. I know a lot of people, they have a stigma that the homeless people are traumatizing. Excuse me. I know there are people like, we have a linkage agreement with people who provide mental services. We have a linkage agreement with people who provide substance abuse services, medical services. We're going to have medical team on staff, psychiatric services on staff. But if a client is you know, above what is maintained within the parameters of, you know, society, we will not have him there. There's facilities where they have mental, you know, act teams where we can transfer them there. That's why I said our main thing is to place clients into permanent housing, but we can't have them there if they are harm to themselves or others. So you don't have to worry about that. Safety is always our first option, and we take all threats serious. So we will EDP someone. I mean, it's not personal, it's just business that if you have an emotional breakdown, then we have to EDP you. You have to go in for a 24-hour, 48-hour observation. When they release you, if depending upon what the psychiatric evaluation says, then we may have to refer you. And when the social workers from the facility call, we say, hey, we don't think this client is suitable for this location and environment. Can you please redirect him to this Myrtle Avenue or something where it's a mental facility? So we will redirect them. We won't just let them come back and, you know, be intrusive to the community. That's not what this is about.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I just, yeah, my question wasn't along the lines of concern about the individuals, and it is a goal and a consistent endeavor of mine to ensure that, you know, we're not stigmatizing people in any way. So the questions don't come from that line. My question is more is like, we want to learn more about what an employment transitional housing program is, because we could possibly then encourage other supportive housing providers to incorporate some of these practices or these, the things that you guys are doing. So I think also with respect to the letter of support, I'm sure folks are just gonna wanna know more about, what services people are receiving, not because they're worried about them coming out and busting them in the head, but that we wanna make sure that folks are getting what they need when they go into places, so that's more of the concern. It's more of a humanitarian concern, so just wanted to say that. I won't hold this up anymore. Are there any questions in the room? Yes, please, Mark.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your work on behalf of the people who need housing. It's honorable, to say the least.
Thank you.
I'm curious, in at least the agenda, it said that you've gotten control of the buildings at 170 and 172 East 107th Street. What does that mean, you've gotten control? Who gave it to you?
Well, we're working with the property owner and we're looking at trying to get the DHS on board, but before we can even present it to DHS, we want to come and get the people within the community and the powers to be to say yay or nay. And then we'll present it. But the building, once we get your approval, then the building will be renovated based on the programmatic needs so that we're able to serve the clients in an appropriate manner.
So you don't own the building, there's an owner of these buildings, you've talked to the owner and they're open to having this become a transitional employment shelter, but you need DHS's approval to create one.
Yeah, because they're the funding source.
Okay, because they're the funding source, okay. But so your needs first wouldn't own the buildings, the owner of the building would retain ownership of the building.
Yes.
Okay, and you also mentioned you have other buildings. Where are the other facilities that you help manage?
Well, the other building is with another not-for-profit. And that's why I left them nameless, because I don't want, to bring them into the circle. But as far as the work and the performance and the accomplishments that we have been able to do under our leadership, then that's what we're looking to utilize as far as the presentation. As far as the other buildings, they own them, but when we go in there, it's not like every day they telling us, do this, do that, do that. They put me in the building because they know exactly when you put me there, I mean, I'm going to eat, sleep, and live it until it's a well-oiled model program. And that's why they don't bother me. They just say, all right, you're in charge of this, take care of it. And I mean, I don't like to, I try to be the most humblest person, but even when COVID happened, with the two buildings I say I run, when COVID happened at its peak, they took me to a building on a Wednesday. They said, this is it. It was another 180 room hotel. On Thursday, they moved people in. Friday, they moved the remaining, and then they went on vacation and said, you got this, right? And I'm like, what? But it was no choice. We got it done. Like I said, in life, failure is not an option. I can't fail. I'll figure it out. So
I guess my question though is like, your passion for this is clear, but you're asking us to provide a letter of support. It's a little challenging when we have no indication of the success or the work that your organization has done other than your passion. If DHS is already aware of the good work you're doing, why do you need a letter of support from Community Board 11?
I feel, and I'm coming to you, they didn't send me to you. They didn't send me. I'm coming to you on my own free will to ask for the support because I don't want to, I don't believe in being sneaky. So if I could come to you and I say to you from the heart, listen, this is what the plan is. I want to bring it to you. If you say no, it's a done deal. I mean, I walk away because I can't, force you. That's why I'm saying, in all free will, in all honesty, I'm coming to you first. And then you get the letter of support. I'll take it to DHS. I'll write the proposal and submit it to them and say, I spoke to the board. I spoke to the city council. They're interested in giving us this opportunity. And then we go forward from there. But they didn't send me to you. They didn't send me to you. They did not.
So, my brother, have you gone to, well, who else have you approached for letters of support? And have you gotten any from anyone? Council members, other committees, things like that?
I have gotten a couple of letters of support, not for this one, because this one is pertaining to you. There was, I had gotten it from Lauren Cumbo. I have gotten it from Hakeem Jeffries. I've gotten it from Christine Gillibrand. I've gotten it from Robert Cornegie, Walter T. Mosley, a number of them. But the reason that the project didn't go, because one of the buildings that we were going to do, the board ended up deciding to sell it at the last minute. And another one we got a letter of selection, but they said it was an oversaturation of shelters in the area, and then they just kept going and going, and then they end up giving it to someone else. So
all right.
I'm not gonna argue it. I just,
Yeah.
you take it on the chin and you keep moving, trying to find the next location where you're hoping that the people within the community can see the vision with you and give you that opportunity.
Okay, I'm going to transition to the next question, please. Thank you.
I do have a question, and I'm just to preface it by saying that we didn't really know that much about you in terms of what you submitted. So I just took it upon myself to Google you, like probably some of my colleagues here did, and I have a question for you. Are you the Terrence Judd that brought a case against the city of New York in February of this year?
Did I bring a case against the city of New York?
Is that you?
What was the case for?
It has something to do with ERISA, ERISA.
Wait, what?
ERISA.
What is that?
I guess then it's not you.
You said DRSA? What is that?
An elephant, R as in Robert, I as in information, S as in state, A as in apple, ERISA.
I don't know what that means.
Okay,
what is the name?
Different Terrence Judd, never mind.
It's an employee rights.
Thank
No,
you.
I need to know about this, because where did you see this?
Right, if you Google yourself, you'll find it. It must be a different Terrence Judd, I'm very sorry.
If you're curious, ERISA has to do with retirement insurance and Income Security Act. It's what has to do with
Thank you.
retirement plans that usually governments or nonprofits have. That's the regulation that controls them. So if you don't know anything about that, this is not you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but if I have the same name, I need to go and Google me, because
Okay,
All right.
never mind.
that's why I sat there. I'm like, huh?
And let that, any committee members, whenever you feel like you want to ask those questions, ask that question, but I think it's good that it was asked anyway, because now he knows there's another Terrence Judd out there, and that could possibly, stand in the way. But, I'm gonna, go to the next hand I see. I don't see any more hands in the room, so I'm gonna go to the hand I see, in the virtual space. Dr. Ponce, are you raising your hand to ask a question?
Yes, hi, yeah, and Mr. Judd answered this partly. First of all, I admire your passion and the work that you do. It's essential, and health, and we know housing is essential for health, right?
Yes.
So you may have responded to this already. I have two questions. In terms of saturation, can you speak to the saturation of specifically male shelters in that community around the 107th Street area? I think that's going to be something that many folks in the community are going to feel an undue burden, right? And I think that's just something you have to realistically address. And then you mentioned that there'll be health services. Can you describe who is partnering with you on health services for these individuals? Because I imagine that they're going to have significant healthcare needs. People who experience homelessness often have had many gaps in healthcare, primary healthcare in particular. Who's partnering with you in that regard?
Okay, so as far as the oversaturation, that one was for another like in Brooklyn. That was that section. As far as me being informed of how many shelters in the area, DHS wouldn't necessarily give me that information or what they have in the pipeline of what's coming. So I can't tell you exactly how many shelters are in there. As far as the medical services, we have a unit that's coming on that's going to be starting. They're going to be on site. They're going to be providing the service. It's interim care where they'll be a part of the facility where they have an office. Another one is Start New York. That's the detox program, and we're going to have New York Psychiatric will be the psychiatric service provider that's going to be coming on site with us as well. And we can refer them for the programs, and they don't necessarily have to be on site. Some of the programs will be external services as well, but we will be having services on site.
Did you have a follow-up to that, Dr. Alfonso?
No, and I know this is a challenge, right? Because shelters, by virtue of the way that they exist, it's not often easy to know how many in the community. But to the best that you can, I think that my recommendation. Listen, you're the expert in this field, right? But getting ahead of that type of question and presenting that for folks in the community to feel that, again, they don't have this undue burden of having shelters, and particularly male shelters, and what's the surrounding schools. These are things that they're unfortunate stigmas, and I think that you have to control the narrative around those stigmas, right? So that you can reassure people that the location is safe for everyone in the community. You mentioned a couple of things in terms of what you'll be doing, and that as far as other shelters in the community, that there's not an undue burden or saturation of those types of shelters in the community. That's just my thoughts on your proposal.
No, I appreciate it, and I would definitely do my due diligence and get that information. And I welcome and thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Dr. Alfonso, because that was spot on. Controlling the narrative around the stigmas, because that is something that you will be confronted with at every front when you are talking supportive housing in a community that's already that feels a burden, and doesn't have the numbers either, but couldn't feel the burden. All right. With that being said, with no more questions, so here's the next steps. I'm going to follow up with you tomorrow and send you the organizational questionnaire. Please do your best to answer every question, submit every report that it asks you to submit. This would give us the best amount of information about yourself, the work you have been doing. In addition, you heard the type of questions that were asked. I think that it may serve well if you followed up with some of those. I know you did your best to answer them on the fly, but I think maybe if you could provide some hardcore sort of numbers and places where people can look into the work that's been done, so folks feel a little assured going into a decision on a letter of support.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think you're good. Like I said, I'll follow up, and if you could just prepare something, don't send it until I email you first. We can start that communication. I'll email you with my name, and then we go from there. How does that sound?
Absolutely. I thank you. And if you can send me that Terrence that she spoke of, I'm going to be Googling it as well, because that one kind of threw me for a minute there. I'm like, did I wait? What? No.
I'm sorry, I sounded accusatory.
You have me concerned. So I will look, but yes, I thank y'all all for your time. I will be looking out for the email. I'll start doing my homework and gathering the information, but I'll wait to see what you have and make sure I get that information as well.
Yes, thank you very, very much. So you have a good evening. Thank you very much for your patience, and we look forward to continuing to learn more about your work.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and get home safe.
Okay, with that, does anybody need to use the bathroom real quick? Transition? Like, really? Okay, cool. So I wanna,
I reserve the right to use it later.
all right, no, so we are, all right, so I'm gonna, do this as quick as possible. I don't think that, well, not that I don't think that, we don't need to go thoroughly into much of this. I'm gonna overview some stuff here, and this is just some stuff I would like for us to think about. First, some of this is for your own knowledge, so you know where stuff is at, you know how to find stuff. But I'm hoping that we can, have some conversations about a few things and really develop a strategy as a unit for how we want to move forward with, our community board business. Could I share screen on? I made a few slides. So I will, cool. Okay, so one of the things regarding, and Dr. Ponce tapped in, hit a spot on when he said controlling the narrative around stigmas. I wanted to just resurface that because a lot of the comments, especially over the last year and a half, this committee has been, I want to say, inundated with one issue. We really haven't had the opportunity to really delve deep into anything else. So I wanted to sort of take us out of that sort of tunnel of addiction services and treatment services and pull us back to the full scope of the Human Services Committee so that we can tap into dealing with some of the other issues in our community and some that you all may be experts in or be more knowledgeable in that we should be, pursuing versus just one issue. So with that being said, I wanted to just bring us back to the bylaws so folks know exactly the scope of this committee. And according to our bylaws, this is copied and pasted right out. The Health, Human Services, Immigrations, and Seniors Committee or such other committees, we take on the name just Human Services, but it encompasses all of that, is to consider issues affecting the health of the community and related social services, support for the immigration population, and advocacy for the senior citizen population. Now, with that, I wanted to, you can't see this too well, I can see that now, I'll just read it off briefly. But I bullet pointed, I wanted to just state on the record, see, I've heard a few people say things like we have oversaturation of social services in East Harlem. That is an absolute misunderstanding of what social services are. I would say we are inundated with certain things like addiction services. We have maybe too many shelters in one central location. These are things, but we don't have too many social services. And when I say that, I'm going to list out just some of the social services that exist, period, and that are relevant to some of the issues that our community members have that we can be thinking about. Healthcare services. Right? These are social services. Educational services. I know that we have committees that oversee some of these services, but I'm listing them because, again, the narrative says we have too many social services. So healthcare services, education services, housing assistance, financial assistance. I know we have the Echo and Dev committee that may look at stuff like this, but this is also a social service. Child and family services. Employment and job training services, right? Disability services, elderly services, crisis intervention. I'll share these slides with you all too, so you can look through them as well. Substance abuse treatment. This is, we know this social service very well. Yeah. Legal aid services, right? And these were just on a general search, just generally, hey, what are social services, right? If we were to go a bit deeper, right, and honed in on a social service related to a particular population, then we would gather entirely, I wouldn't say a different search, but we would have some uniquenesses in some of the social services a particular demographic may need. And of course, we would see overlap. I did an additional search because I wanted to see, well, what are social services for people, related, who have, domestic violence issues, maybe intimate partner violence and, child abuse. You know, what are those sort of social services? And I saw domestic violence shelters, counseling and therapy. These are different social services, again, legal aid for victims, support groups, right? Child advocacy centers, hotlines and helplines, crisis intervention services, parenting classes, community outreach and education, another overlap one, transitional housing programs, trauma-informed care services, advocacy and legal services. We said that's like the third time we saw that. So I just say all that to say, and this is not the end of it, right? Because we could have tailored this search to any demographic. I just wanted to point out with these slides that there are a lot of issues in East Harlem that we can be tackling. And I would love for us to start to think about what we want to, you know, and especially if it's a population that's specific to you. You know, when I joined the community board, because I was formerly incarcerated, and I wanted to be a voice for those who were system impacted, right? I've deviated a bit, but I'm still a voice for those folks. And the issues y'all see me real passionate about sort of intersect with that identity. I would love for you all to bring that into the space as well, so that we can hone in on some of these issues, and your passion will intersect and will help us to really like delve deeper into strategies for community initiatives or just whatever. Let's figure it out. So the purpose of this really is to pull us out of, I'll stop sharing screen, Marlon, you can push your screen back up. Thank you very much. I really wanted to just show those slides so that we could just be reminded that there are so many more issues in East Harlem that we can be and should be looking at. And I don't want us to get, you know, caught up in the hype or in the, you know, the complaint, you know, the popular complaint and keep us from addressing other issues in East Harlem. So with that being said, I'll come out of it. I'll go through these bullet points really quickly. We have a drive. I should have captured on screen. I'm sorry, Marlon. So I'm gonna link off to some stuff for you. I'm not sure if everyone knows where our community board drive is, but we have a working drive for board members. Let me share screen so you can see what it looks like. I'll show you how to get to it on your Google Drive. Right here, if you go on the side here, and make my screen a bit bigger for you. Okay. Yep. All right. So, much happened in the one. So on the side here, if you can't find the board members drive, go to your Google Drive folder, the email account that you're using for CB11, and I'm sure it's been shared with you. You go to share drive and you will find the drive, just so you know where it's at. And I'm telling you this specifically for our community because I use Google Drive. I love Google Drive and I use it a lot. And I prepare everything for our for the Human Services Committee and Human Services folder. So you should go in there if you want to see what I've been doing for the past year or so. So you can stay updated on how to find stuff, work we've been doing, folders, budget requests. Now, some of these folders do need to be organized, and I'm hoping that you all will help me as you start using it to drive more with me. But I made a folder for budget requests. In this folder, you will find, I think what's most important right now is this prospective budget sheet right here. This is the sheet that I mentioned to you all in the email that I sent to you all. These are, I would love for you all to look at it. It's a long document, so we won't go through it on the floor now. But we will go through some of it at some, you know, December or January. But I would love for you all to look through this, get ideas, get inspired, write comments, and let's look at, these are directly based off of our resolutions that we have passed. With that, the next folder, organization questionnaire. I'm going to kill two birds with one stone on this part.
That's okay. I'll go in there later.
All right. Okay, thanks. So we have an organizational questionnaire. I'm not sure if everyone knows that. The organizational questionnaire was created, I feel like maybe Jen and Robin might have been all the people who are still here. Maybe Brandon, I think, might have been here when we did the organizational questionnaire. But I'm going to show you where to find it. And it has a snapshot of the questions already on the front. I think that's the quickest way to show you what questions we ask people. I told the gentleman, I'll send you the organizational questionnaire. It used to be a document. Last month or a few weeks ago, I transferred it into a Google form so that we can then link it to a spreadsheet to be able to track information. That way later we don't have to ask people, hey, could you transfer this over? So I noticed we have it in paper files. So this is our organizational questionnaire. Here is a snapshot of the questions. Now, just to go back, I know I'm clicking fast. This questionnaire is available on the CB11 website, on our page, Human Services Committee. This questionnaire is not unique to people who come and present before us. We actually wanted everybody who provides a service that falls under the purview of our committee to fill it out, so we knew who was in the committee. So our community. So even if they don't fill it, come before us, you know, if you want to ask people to fill it out, we encourage you to do that. The more people who fill it out, the more we know about the services being provided inside of East Harlem. So with that, the organizational questionnaire is online. Here are the snapshot of the questions. The part one is organizational contact information. So we ask pretty general information about the organization. About the contact person, I probably did a typo here. The organizational contact information and then the organization information. It's not a mistake. Because this first part is geared towards who's actually filling out the form. Because we don't know who may be filling out the form we also had big organizations in mind.
Left no time.
Things like that. So which leads me to something I'm going to bring up after we go through this. So part two, organizational information. So we asked what's your organizational structure, how long has your organization been operating in East Harlem, who has authorized you to work in East Harlem, does your organization have a community advisory board? The third part, programs, services, initiatives. So these questions give us some better insight into the services that are being provided. And Mark, if you want to, do you need help finding that one?
I'm finding lots of things, but I'm trying to find the thing you're actually looking at.
Okay, so really quickly, are you able to get to the website?
Yes.
Go to the website. That's not the website.
That's what it is.
Google Drive. Go to CB11M.
Okay. Yep.
Type that in.
I got it.
Go to the website first, and then I can take you there.
Okay.
Okay, now that's the Human Services.
Yeah.
Now scroll down to forms and guidelines. Here you go. Look at it. Here you go. So now you know how to find those forms.
Okay.
So whenever you want to refer people to them, that's where it's at. Go to our page, right? So that is so you can look through the questions. You can see what questions we ask people, right? And the fourth part is a request for additional information. We also ask people to provide information regarding audits, annual reports, anything about the population you serve that we should know about, things like that nature. This brings me to the second part. I don't remember where and how this got mentioned, but I remember it getting mentioned that we should probably tailor this form for specifically helping hospitals and clinical organizations. So that's something I want to just put out there and ask you guys, we don't have to talk about it today, but y'all can let me know if that's a good idea. But I don't remember, I really don't know if it was executive committee or someone, or if it was a committee member who just threw it out like, hey, we should tailor this, or we should have one specifically, or do we have one specifically for hospitals? And I was like, no, we just have a general one. So if you guys feel like we should have a specific form, or we should update this form to be more inclusive to different types of organizations, or if we should have different forms for different types of organizations, because we have some that are like grassroots initiatives that may not be big hospitals. So the questions, a lot of them, they may be just saying not applicable, and then we don't get the information about them that we wanted, right? So this is something to think about. It's not something that we need to do immediately. I'm just throwing out like 2024 stuff that we can think about doing. You all let me know what you think. And if there's any, shut me up at any point and throw a comment in. I'm trying to get us out on a good time. That's why I'm talking so fast. But any thoughts on that before I keep going?
I mean, conceptually, it's a good idea to have different ones for the things that more fit, but the problem is then you have to decide which one they're using. And then that could actually slow things down in terms of people filling things out.
What do you mean?
So when they go to the website, there's 4 different forms they have to choose. They have to figure out which one they belong to.
So ideally, we wouldn't send you to the form and say, send you to the site and say, fill out the form. We would just send you the form.
Got it, okay. So that
And say,
is safe.
fill out this form.
Yes, that is
You
safe.
know what I mean? Yeah. What do you think, Dave? When you make that face, I know you're thinking.
My preference would be one form, if something's not applicable, especially because I love that it's Google form, because I love the outline of the
Yeah.
spreadsheet. Because then you have all of the information in one place, and something doesn't apply doesn't apply. I'm curious what, because I was not part of the conversation with the logic for the hospital and it's separate. I'm just curious where that came from.
Remember, Jen, do you remember?
I don't, but I wonder, can you do like logic questioning Google Forms?
You can now.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Mount
You can
Sinai
now.
doesn't need to enter like the same stuff over and over again, like we know Mount Sinai. like,
Exactly.
You can now. You absolutely can. Who are you?
For better or worse, we know
So,
that.
but the only thing is, it doesn't let you skip to a question, but a section. So if that means we have to skip them from to a certain section, then we can do that, but you can't skip to a question specifically.
But we could have like a repeat, like someone has already filled it out big picture for your organization, and just send them, this is specific to what you're now wanting to present. If it's a bigger, like that would just.
I think we should just come up with a strategy we want to use and use it. I'm totally cool with what y'all think.
I think it should be like the same form, because keeping track of different forms.
Cool.
Do we
Sounds-
all have access to the output?
You do, because it is in the Google, it is everything that I've been doing for community board is in the drive, yeah, and it's actually in our, which takes me, thank you, April. Takes me to the next thing, which is I didn't finish in the folder, so I'll go back to the folder, but yes, it's a folder in there that's like forms and spreadsheets. Show us a spreadsheet in there, yes. So yes, that's our organizational questionnaire, so whenever you hear me reference it, that is what I'm talking about, because that is what we have. I also I also made the request for committee presentation, a Google form, and that's linked to the same spreadsheet. So this, ideally, this one spreadsheet will track all of our information that we give. So we create forms for other things, they are all linked to this one form. So we never have to go to different places to find out information about the work we've been doing. So that's the goal. Okay, so with that, I'll go back to the so really quickly, yes, so we have the letters of the forms and spreadsheets to the point that April was making. It's right in here, you'll see it. Letters of support inside here are both of the letters, the letter refuting or disputing Mayor Adams' cut food program cut, that's one. And then the second one is the moratorium. So you should know, Robin, because you wasn't here at the last meeting, that that sheet that has suggested recommendations also has budget requests in line with the food program done as well. So
Do you need a CB11 email address in order to get onto that?
no, you shouldn't be, it should
Okay.
be shared to the email you're registered
Oh,
with CB11. Am I right, Molly?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is upward to the cool. All right, so again, communications, I don't know why I have this and I spelled it wrong, but I have it probably because I was maybe, this is where I put my emails to people. I draft emails in here, so I'll erase those before you guys see them because I have raw thoughts before I send out stuff, so I brainstorm, and then that's in this, so I'll always brainstorm. But communication, as we need to use it, we will use it. Media, I don't know why I made this, but I imagine we'll use this when we do public events and we want to take pictures. I'm an artist, so I like to be visual, so when we do stuff in the community, I'll take pictures, stuff like that. I don't know why I made this folder, but I always have a media folder in every folder I move. And then unsorted documents, this is where I put stuff that I can't decide on. So, this has been organized by me, but feel free to make it your own. So go in there, do you. But I just want you all to know that we have a workspace for the Human Services Committee. And you can find stuff here, you should add to it. You can also, the most important folder I should have said is the committee meetings folder. And that has all of our committee meetings and our materials and everything from the meetings, minutes and everything. So inside of one, maybe we go into the October meeting, that was a big meeting. You will see everything, you will see the exact, I even keep the executive, I don't know, maybe I should move it out. But I keep executive committee notes for myself inside of here. The minutes are here, and everything that, all the materials that we get, anything that I reference in the month of October on the floor, I put here. Even if I don't reference it, I don't get time to, it's in here. So if you check every month's folder, you'll see all of the materials there. So that is another way for you to find out what took place in a certain month in case you missed a month. So I just want you all to know that. I'm trying to do my best to ensure that everyone is good, staying up to date. Yeah, so we all good. Yeah, so we won't review the resolutions this month, but that'll probably be on the agenda for next month. Because we should also review the budget request together, so we can do this together maybe on our next meeting. I already did mention the specifically help the hospitals. We don't need to do that in one form. I did mention the different topics. That was why I started off with the social services. Please think about, here's an idea. Would you all like to explore different topics, different months? So every month we can base our presentations on a different area. So one month we can do presentations all on supportive housing. One can be all on seniors. One can be all on just. Yeah. I am looking for help and I'm looking for ideas. So please, I would love for you all. I'll email you all with some thoughts that I had about how you all could help me. I need support with. I will let you know that we don't have a vice chair right now. Our vice chair has resigned from the community board in total to be with their family. So we will be getting appointed a new vice chair. I did make a recommendation for someone. I will. Am I allowed to say who? Okay, so I did make a recommendation, and I'll stop there before I get in trouble. So we are a new committee in a lot of ways, and I would love for us to develop some strategies for how we can collaborate and create I'll end with this, some grassroots community initiatives. The announcement I was going to make in the beginning, I will make it again at the beginning of the next meeting, is that Another Choice Youth and Family Outreach Inc., which is the organization we run around the corner on 116th and Madison, is actively seeking community partners to to launch our maternal health program. We were doing events around this topic all last year, and the person who was leading the events doesn't have the capacity to keep doing it in different boroughs. So we want to bring it here. So we wanted to partner with different orgs who could help us to just bring in resources and information for our expecting mothers. We're in the church, so we got people come there for all sorts of different issues they have. And also we want to expand our clothing pantry. So I'll tell you guys, I was out last week and we get a lot of clothing donations, and if you come through midday, you'll see me a lot of times outside on the corner, either giving out hot food that Karim and them bring us from Youth Action You Build, or giving out clothes right on the corner. So I'll just pull out a table. I usually have my young people from the Community Service Learning Initiative out there with me, and we just put up free stuff, put a sign up, it's free. The last time I was out there, we put up the sign for free clothes, and before I could even get the clothes out of the bag, there was a family who had just come in from a Spanish-speaking country. I don't want to presume I know what country they came from, but they, were taking the clothes literally out of the bag and out of my hand before I could put them on the rack. And a lot of the clothes were for their children who they had with them. There was about three mothers there who had they had a few children of their own. We have a pantry there, thank God. So we were able to, you know, on top of the clothes, because that was just randomly going out. I'm like, hey, let me just go outside to the give time. So we gave them clothes, we gave them food in the pantry. I have a thing for giving out food, and so I loved it, like just over give out food. So we gave them food, but we would have anyway. But we usually have our pantries Friday, and this was like a Thursday, so we gave them food. We also gave them like, I think like 12 book bags that we still had from our book bag giveaway. So anything we like had on site, we were just giving it away. So, but it just really hurt my heart a lot. And it made me just want to come back to you all and to, you know, throw out to you all, let's start thinking about some grassroots community initiatives that we can do. We have a site right on, you know, right around the corner. I'll host anything that we want to do. Anything. Brad is with me, you know, he said he would have stayed there, he wasn't so late. I knew he wasn't gonna stay, I surprised him, so he was going to be there, but we have like whatever community board wants to do, we can do it. So if there's any like initiatives, workshops, giveaways, we want to do, there's a toy drive, I'm gonna circle back with everybody about, so you all know how to share. I bumped into some folks that have been really contentious with the board, and I think they're willing to work with us on some of these community initiatives after I spoke to them about the need. I don't think they knew the need, and I expressed it to them. So there are some like basic things we can do. We can help, like, hey, we can between us, we can reach out to some organizations and say, hey, can you donate clothes? Or we can donate our clothes, right? Things like that, like just very basic things that you can think about. Everything doesn't have to be at this, you know, high organizational level. If there are things that we can do, you know, straight up, let me know and let's do it. So community initiatives will be something that's always on our new business or old business portion of our meeting. Karim, yes.
Yes, I wanted to say, well, one thing that we're doing at Youth Action is a lot of youth-led initiatives. So I'm definitely open to you know, having those different workshops or different initiatives and being hosted there, like voter registration, as well as we have a youth-led food drive happening next week that I'm trying to organize myself, but things like that.
Okay,
sure.
very nice. And let us know that we'll definitely send it around and we'll see how we can get to that. But we got a plan, so we can get something. Yes.
Well, on sort of aggregation of a lot of things you've said, I mean, it's great for you to keep highlighting that, you know, we're talking about oversaturation, we're talking about drug prevention or drug support, you know, we're not talking about social services when you talk about what the need is in the communities. And when you're saying about what committee you should focus on, I mean, the need that you're seeing, I volunteer at the New York Common Pantry. And even over the last 2 months, it has been very evident change in the population that is coming through there. It used to be a lot of men. Now it is a lot of families with young children. They're still men, but it's like, and I said, my heart goes to these families. I keep thinking like, how does it mean to move to a place you know no one with your young children and you don't know anything, right? I mean, you have to navigate this entire world by yourself and hopefully not by themselves, but if you understand what I mean. So I would think that that's something that's really right now very much the reality of the neighborhood. And I don't know what we could do at a meeting to discuss what are the services even available to these ones. I don't know.
Yeah, so some of the things we can do, Mark, is we can spend meeting time, you know, talking about some of this stuff for the sake of the community's ear and get their input. But I think a lot more of it will be done offline, so we can think about how we can, you know, set up opportunities for us to work together outside of this time to do those things. But we can think of some things that you think of an idea.
Well, when I talk about
how we can make it real.
Yeah, when I talk about the community, I mean, using the resource, the expertise that already exists, but what do these families need, right? That's what I mean. It's like someone we knew could come here and lead a discussion, like, what is it that we could do that would actually be valuable to be done? I mean, yes, giving away food, giving away clothing is always going to be potentially valuable, but maybe there's more structurally significant things that we as a community board could actually spearhead if we knew what it was that we could do.
Would it be helpful if we had some people come on to just give testimony about some things?
Can I make a big picture suggestion? I think a good strategy, because I agree. I see our role as really scanning the horizon, what's happening in the community, what are the needs, where are the gaps, how can we help? And whatever that looks like, whether it's having testimony, whether it's having experts, whether it's having unknown resources that we know about, and then we're connecting people. So what about if we have a Google Doc, a shared Google Doc? One, I would love to have everyone's contact information and their expertise and their areas of interest and passion. I think that'd be very interesting. And then if we focused on one topic a month, so January 2024 or later, we said we're gonna do migrant services. And then we divide amongst us, and someone looks at community resources. Someone else looks for an expert in the field. Someone else looks at legal services. Someone else looks at whatever. And then we bring those things together. So we're doing work on our own in our skill set and in our talent and areas of strength. But then we're coming together and actually saying, okay, now what do we do with this knowledge, and how do we effectively help and positively the community by meeting the needs that we're actually seeing.
It's interesting you mentioned that. We previously had representatives from the mayor's office here to talk about it. I've been on forums of this committee for over 11 years, and immigration is the one that's talked about the least. What we tried to do was have know your rights kind of event, and nobody came. So I can tell you that that's not what we need to do.
Sure. Well, and I'm part of Physicians for Human Rights, so I do a lot of asylum work. So I do a lot of medical and psych evals for people seeking asylum, and a lot of things are raised. So need for medical services, need for counseling, and that's not my role in that space. It's really just working with the legal team and helping them stay in a place that's safe. But I think looking at, again, specific to our community, who is here, what do they need, what do we have, and then how do we connect? Like, I feel like that's our.
I'm talking about, so I'm happy to be part.
Perfect.
We certainly want to try, so there would not to make that effort.
Jen, what do you think?
Yeah.
That sounds good, All right, can I challenge you to draft that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's it really, like, that's really what I wanted to bring to you all, that there are a lot of issues. Let's figure out our role in these issues, how we're gonna do this work, and how we don't neglect it, especially this, especially the places we have before us. So that concludes everything that I have for new business and old business, I believe. Yeah,
That was efficient.
was that?
That was efficient.
It's only 8:10, good. Thank you, April, and thank you everyone, Glenn, Robin, Shannon, Brandon, Pauline, and Mark. Thank you very much, everyone, for your feedback, because it's very important. The more you guys weigh in and give feedback to us and guidance, the less I have to try to figure out what the hell we're doing, and I'm so far from an expert, so I really need you all in this way. So thank you. With that, I'll be quiet. If there are no questions in dire comments, then we can do the roll. Oh, sorry.
There's something that I call in the beginning of the committee, so I'll hold it out and our sponsor will.
Oh, okay. So we don't roll on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you're ready.
We are ready.
Okay. April, Audrey. Martha Burst.
Present.
You have Charlie.
He had to leave to see his son in the hospital. That's what he's doing.
So that's her. No problem. William Calvin.
Present.
Robert Flores. Brandon Gillespie.
Present.
Jennifer Meyer.
Present.
Alicia Miranda. Isaac Scott.
Present.
And Robin Street. Present.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a blessed evening.
And Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Was not on.
Oh, and then you know the.
Right. That's why I couldn't get on here, because I was in my CB11M.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
And I had a, so that's when I get a turn on the CB11. I don't know. Yeah, I was rocking. I said, like, yeah, do that. And then all of a sudden I could.
Yeah, I can't get that.
Right now.
You got a little bow tie out of my head. That's just.